Well, welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of the Shit Show. And boy, man, behind the scenes, Hopper doesn't know how to work freaking anything when it comes to IT, because we're getting more shit, dude. I'm gonna throw the freaking computer around. This is retarded. I need to hire somebody to be the IT professional, but I've got three amazing guests with me. One of the riders, he was involved with press day and he's having issues with his dirt bike, so he may or may not join us. We're going to have Tristan Lane on here as well. He's been doing really well, but we are joined by Bobby Piazza, and he looks like he is in his Spritter van. And we've got Coach Robb Beams, and we also got Cooksey here. So it wouldn't be a shit show if I didn't start it from being a complete nightmare. And my stress and anxiety is through the moon. I want to take this mic and I want to throw it through the 4 monitors that I have here, because there's too much effing stuff moving around from here. But digressing,
hey, Johnny,
as far as
just remember what we always say: if somebody thinks they can do it better, they can always show up, man. We have mad respect for what you put together every week. So thank you.
Dude, I know for a fact somebody could do it better. Absolutely. Somebody could freaking do it better. But Bobby, how the hell are you, dude?
Not bad, man. Just out here in sunny Florida, sweating my ass off.
Yeah. So did you not want to take the massive drive to California?
Yeah, I wasn't driving out there. I was trying to get my bike sent out there, but it just didn't work out, and it was a little too expensive. So I figured I'd just skip this round and head out to Arlington next weekend.
I was reading Club MX's press release, and they actually hired a second truck driver to just make this one trip out there because of the extra cost. And they needed to have, because now there's weird laws with truck drivers. They can only drive a certain amount of time, and they're all pumped that everyone gets to race. However, people are like, yeah, this is rather expensive to drive across country. And I know a few privateers that have said, man, we may go do some arena crosses because this just isn't cost effective, especially with gas being freaking $4 or $5. What is it there in Florida right now?
Almost $5.
So it's cheap.
Yeah. Not too cheap. I was out in Louisiana last week and it was like $3.20 a gallon, which wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Here in Arizona, it's $3.20 at the Costco's. Coach and Cooksey in Nevada, and
right about $4.
Well, I'm in Florida with Bobby, so you already got our Florida number. I'm right in Lake Mary, Bobby. I don't know where you're at in Florida right now.
I'm in Clearwater right now.
Okay, cool.
Oh, dude, I like Clearwater. Okay, well,
Johnny,
I'm just.
What would you guess? And I don't know if anybody's got the number. What would you guess it costs for that 18-wheeler to go from Tampa to Oakland? 18-wheeler full load.
Ask, but
Tampa to Oakland.
I don't know if anybody that's
3,000.
I think it's more than that. Those guys are.
I don't know what those trucks get per mile. I don't know if maybe someone in the chat room that maybe knows what the mileage of an 18-wheeler full load would be, but I just think it'd be fascinating to figure out what that cost would be. It's bad enough in a Sprinter van under load. How many miles to the gallon do you get, Bobby, with your Sprinter under full load?
I think around like maybe 20. It's not too bad on a Sprinter. I went from San Diego back to Tampa. It was like just around $650. Not too bad.
I'll ask the chat. Does anybody know what an 18-wheeler gets gas mileage wise? And hey, there's Tristan Lane.
My boy Greg says 6 miles per gallon.
6 miles per gallon. Tristan, welcome to the shit show, man. You missed quite a shit show. I was having some major technical difficulties. I made these poor SOBs of people in the chat wait because I had to restart my computer. I had to do all this other weird shit. I had to kick Cooksey out 6 times. I only really had to kick him out 5, but I did an extra just because.
Johnny, you're not the only one to kick me out, ban me. It's regular.
I'm technologically not gifted. I apologize, guys, but I'm so happy to be joining everyone.
Well, you guys all know how to twist the throttle here. So we've got a couple privateers involved, and Tristan, we're going to be talking, just Okay, let me tell you the rules since you just showed right live. There are no rules. There are no rules. So
I like it.
if you want to interrupt somebody, if you want to brake check somebody, by all means, Justin Barsh it. Okay.
Sounds good.
How was press day?
It was awesome. Yeah, it was really good. This track is no joke, though. It is extremely beefy, really big obstacles. There's a whoop section into a Dragon's Back into another whoop section. So, yeah, we're gonna have our hands full this weekend.
How's the dirt? Is it going to break down?
Yeah, so I've never raced Oakland before, but I was talking to a couple guys from California that have been here, and they said that it will break down, which I was surprised by because it felt really hard packed to me. So we'll see. Time will tell.
Did they let you ride the whoops at all, or did they make you go around them for press?
Yeah, we weren't able to ride the whoops, unfortunately.
So you're just taking the fast line as far as cutting off. I
Yes.
want to call those the hopper line because those things look scary.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Okay, question for both Bobby and Tristan, and Cooksey and Coach, you guys can obviously interrupt if need be. I do not like the Dragon's Back. I think they're too scary and dangerous, especially as they get worn out. But what does some of the riders that actually still have their pro license, what do you guys think about Dragon Backs?
Bobby?
Go ahead. They're not too bad. I mean, unless you actually practice them, they're pretty scary. Sometimes you drop your front wheel, you're going for a ride. I was at where were we? Was it Anaheim? No, it was San Diego Dragon's Back. I was behind Henry Miller when he dropped his front end and just did the front flip and pile drove himself into the ground. So they can be super sketchy at times, but I don't really mind them. The Dragon's Back last weekend at Tampa, it was pretty easy, I thought.
Yeah, so I'll second that. I mean, I think like any obstacle on a supercross track, if you do it right, it's not bad at all. And I think the problem is when you're going, you look at it, it's super intimidating. And I have an issue where if I don't come in fast, you start dropping, but then you typically have a gap you have to jump on the Dragons. Normally they're not going to flat. You have like a double you're jumping at the end of it. So if you're not carrying speed and you don't have pace, you're gonna probably do a front flip or case the landing, and then defeats the purpose of even trying to blitz them. So it's all commitment. I guess it's still just a whoop section, but you're going uphill. So that adds a whole other element.
Yeah,
Okay, so
everything pretty much commitment. If you don't commit, you're going down.
I'm going to interrupt Cooksey here because he said he was going to say something. Is this something where you probably just have third gear, just rah-da-da-da-da, or are you guys in second chugging?
Honestly, I don't even hit third gear on the supercross track. I don't go fast enough.
My bike is geared to where I go third for like whoops or Dragon's Back, but I second Bobby. If I'm not going fast, yeah, maybe second still.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll hit third gear in the whoops and like on the 250, no problem. I'm hitting like third, fourth gear, no problem. But on the 450, I try to hit third and just like I can't stay on top of them the correct way. So it's just like I'm better off in second.
So yeah. Tristan, now at the Dragon's Back at A2, it went up and it didn't have like a double after. It was like a step down, just kind of for safety for the futures. Would you prefer the Dragon's Back be like that or the actual double?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought it was a great section. The way they did it, it looked, when you're walking it, you're like, okay, it's tame. It doesn't have as big of a consequence if you were to case it. But when you watch the race back, I mean, I remember Deegan and Futures crashed entering it. Another kid crashed entering it. They put a 90-degree corner before it. So after the finish, you can change the element of how you enter the Dragon's Back. So that's what I think is really created by the track crew is you don't have to have it so dangerous. If you just obviously if it's a 180 left into a really tame Dragon's Back with no consequence, maybe that would look boring on TV or whatever. But I think the way they do it was really smart, and I thought it provided good racing. So I personally like it the way it was at A2. But at the same time, Tampa last weekend, I didn't really have an issue in the Dragon's Back. I thought it was pretty straightforward, but you also had a good run coming into it. And that makes a huge difference because you kind of just lock in and set up and shift and then don't move. And if you do that, you'll be fine typically. But
fun question for some of the people that are looking to come up and they look up to you guys as riders. If you don't mind sharing, what kind of gearing do you have for your supercross bikes? Bobby, go first.
I run a stock Yamaha 450. I think stock it comes with the 49, but I upped one to a 50, so 1350 is what I run.
Tristan?
Yep, I'm on a 1350 as well.
Wow. Wow, you guys are having 50s. I would expect that you guys might have like 52s, maybe 53s on the
I
back.
have actually
We have enough power, I think.
I can give a good perspective on this because I did a lot of gearing testing this off season, messing with stuff. So I found out doing some digging because I would like research. I forget who's the photographer, Travis Fant, I believe. He does these like really cool write-ups on the bikes, all the factory bikes, and I would geek out and I'm like, I wonder what Tomax gearing is, or I wonder what Webb's is, right? So I would look through all of his photos and he would explain typically and say what gearing it is. He'd give you a good scoop on it. A lot of those guys run a 14 counter sprocket, which I didn't know. I always thought like, oh, they're all on 13s. I think a lot of guys still are on 13s, but some people run a 14. So if you run a 14 front, you would run like a 52 or a 53 rear. And then if you run a 13 front, if you do a 1352, which I know some people do like a 51 or a 52, I feel like you're going to have to go to fourth gear in the whoops, or else it would rev out, right? So I like the idea of having my bike to where I don't have to shift as much. It just gives me like one less thing to worry about. But obviously, I guess every rider and bike is different.
No. That's a good point, because for the viewers, if you run a different counter shaft, you got to think of it as like 2.5 teeth is basically what it's going to change on the rear.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, here I want. Okay, so Bobby's not going to the race because he doesn't have $4,000 to go across country with gas. You know, that's a good segue, guys. If you ever want to help a privateer out, their links are in the description, and you buy their merch. You try to help them out any way you can so that these guys can actually get to the races and we can watch them kick some fucking ass. But all right, Bobby, looking at this track, are you bummed you're missing this crazy ass corner rhythm section? You know, what do you feel about this track? Do you think it's going to be one line?
I was actually watching Tristan's Instagram story earlier, and I seen how beefy the track actually looked. Yeah, I'm bummed I'm not going, but I mean, it's only one weekend I'm missing, so was it really going to be worth all the travel and all the headache to try to get there and all the money? Not really. So I figured might as well just take another weekend off and just try to get ready for Arlington.
Power to you, dude. I guess that's kind of a...
I am bummed I am missing it, but like I did try to get out there. I was trying to send my bike with a few teams, but at the end it just didn't make sense. So I figured I'd try to get some riding in this week, maybe a little bit more training, and maybe come out a little better at Arlington.
Do you normally just
I'm gonna dash it show, Johnny.
Cooksey, what?
I want to ask Bobby about the reality.
Dude, go
show.
for it. Go for it. I told you there's no rules on this show.
Except for you cut me off.
Silence. And so if
No,
you guys
I'm trying to get in there.
stage,
Listen, I found out about Bobby when he was trying out for the 250 team.
Up.
Jesus, Johnny. Like, can I talk? No, I just wanted to ask him about the reality show. That's what I remember you from. How many people still remember you from that, Bobby?
I still get it to this day for sure.
Did it help? Did it hurt? Like, what's your opinion?
It definitely helped. Like I said, it's great. It was a hell of an experience. I was glad I got to do it. Jamie from Twisted Development, his bikes are awesome. I wish I had one right now. Yeah, I'm definitely grateful for it. It was an awesome experience.
Very cool. Very cool.
Bobby, just out of curiosity, you don't have to name any names, but what were the hurdles? Why couldn't you get your bike out west and back? Cost prohibitive? Nobody willing to do it? What was it?
I got a price for $1,500, a price for $1,200, and then a price for $1,000. I was gonna send my bike to Oakland, to Dallas, and then back to Daytona, and I was just gonna fly to Oakland and Dallas. And then I don't know. After the race, everything's just such a rush. Everybody's packing up. At Tampa, they didn't have any power washers set up, so I couldn't get my bike washed and none of my stuff clean to send to Oakland just last minute with some team. So I just backed out of it. I was gonna do it though, but it would probably make more sense to do it. It'd probably save a little more money on gas instead of driving myself to Dallas and back, but it is what it is.
When you get those 3 prices, are those coming from people that are doing that for other riders, or is that just somebody willing to do it for you? That's pulling a friend car?
It was a few supercross teams, like some of the privateer teams and satellite teams. I asked 3 or 4 of them.
I just think it's really interesting for the listeners to kind of put that in perspective, because I don't think the average individual understands how chaotic it is when that night show is over. I mean, it is just organized chaos for sometimes 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Before the night show even starts, everybody starts packing up, so canopies are coming down. Everybody's washing their stuff, getting everything cleaned up, ready for the next round. Getting on the road.
Especially when they got thrown a curveball that they now have to drive from Tampa to Oakland. If it wasn't rushed before, you can only imagine what it is now. So I was wondering what that was in that regards. And then the other question I have for you, just based on your comment, go out there and make the show, do quite well. You break even with sponsors, bonuses. Do you make a little bit of money?
I make I think the last place just to make the night shows $12.50, and then I have a gear sponsor, Kang Racing. He helps me out with night show bonus and like main event bonus and stuff like that. I have a few other sponsors with a couple other bonuses, but other than that, I'm maybe making $1,500 a weekend. But then again, it goes right back into it. I'm going to sign up, which is like $250 to sign up. I'm spending another $500, $600, $700 in gas to get there and back. Hotels, food, it just adds up, My bike breaks, I'm either paying for parts or I'm trying to find somebody to help me out.
And that's why I appreciate you sharing it, because like you said, you make the main event, it barely covers the cost for you to get your bike shipped out there. Would you say your cheapest one was $1,000?
Yeah, that's why I didn't go to Oakland, because it wouldn't have made sense. I would have been spending more money than I've been making. So
that's the raw reality right there. And yet there's certain talking pundits on other so-called shows that like to say that all we try to do is stir up the negative, and that is far from the case. You two guys are the real reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's sketchy out there too, man. It's like we actually are risking our lives pretty much out there. Like, even if you do get a half-ass start in the middle of the pack, you're surrounded by bikes. Literally, we're jumping on top of each other, banging bars in the air, just trying to save ourselves from going down. And that's my main issue. Like, just getting a good start and not being scared to get in there with them guys and actually banging bars, So it's just
absolutely.
Like, definitely got to build up your confidence and get strong, and you actually got to mean it when that gate drops. You got to be in the zone.
Are you running a separate practice bike that you run all year long, or do you rotate them? How do you do those?
I own one bike right now. I actually buy, no dealers help me out or nothing, so I actually buy all my bikes off Facebook Marketplace. I try to find a good deal on a bike that has less than like 5 hours on it. Like the bike I just got now had, I think, 4 hours on it, and I bought it for $7,000, and it was Monster Edition 21 Yamaha 450. So I got a deal on it. I got some suspension on it, and that's about it.
And this is how the fastest racers in America get things done.
And then again, I'm traveling across country. I broke down in El Paso. I broke down in California once. It's just an ongoing process. I mean, my mom and dad said I'm crazy for still doing it because everything's just a problem and always running into problems and stuff. But it is what it is. That's what I love to do. I'm going to do it till I can't.
Well, then, and I follow your road dog that you have there with you. She's with you at almost every race, right? She's living the dream, cruising around.
Yeah. Morgan, she's at work right now, but yeah, she's there every weekend with me. She helps support me big time, and gotta love it.
Hey, Tristan, so what are you thinking this weekend? Does it help a ton to ride press? And are we thinking main event this weekend? What are we thinking?
Yeah, press is obviously a super big advantage, but for some people, they don't look at it as much as I do. Like, I think it's awesome to be able to go out there and ride, but ultimately our job with press is just to try and help sell tickets to the race. So we're there riding, but Sean Brennan and Feld, they're very clear on like, don't get this twisted by any means and think that you're here for any other reason, just to help, sell tickets, which is I'm more than happy to do if I get, to ride in return. But I definitely would love to be in a main event this weekend. It's been it's been a really interesting season for me. I'm definitely a little banged up and beat up, but I'm still fighting and still trying. I think I have a good chance. I feel like I'm getting better. And I made some good improvements even this morning riding. So we'll see. Yeah, that's the plan.
Tristan, I appreciate you being completely honest. I guess I will be devil's advocate with saying that press, wouldn't you think would sell more tickets is if all the riders were able to do the same rhythms and you had better racing action in the night show? It would just compound and people would start to go to the next round and the next round as fans. I don't know. I have a funny relationship with press day there, because even though you guys are using it, they're using it to sell tickets. A lot of the teams are using it as an extra practice to prep for the race. And I know you might not be able to say that. I'm just the one personally saying that. And if I'm reading some of the comments,
Johnny, I'm gonna take the pressure off these guys, and I want to jump in for them. Listen, these guys at Feld that are telling Tristan and Bobby, they probably, I don't know if they've invited you, Bobby, but these guys that are selling tickets and they're inviting you, they don't understand racing. Sean Brennan can't ride a bike. Sean Brennan could never ride a bike. He doesn't understand. He wants you to go interview before you guys go on the track and risk your lives. I'm like, literally, that's so stupid. I want to talk to you guys after, because the amount of focus and commitment it takes to go out there and hit that stuff for the first time. So it's frustrating when I see press and they tell these guys and they're preaching it to Tristan, "Oh, you're here to sell tickets for us. Do you get a piece of those tickets?" No, then you're there to figure out what you need to do for race day. And I'm sorry, but yeah, you got to play the game. And I love how Tristan says the right things. But in my mind, if I'm ever going to press day, unless I get a piece of those tickets, I'm going to learn the track.
Well, I don't want to put anything on Tristan here. There's a business aspect to it, Cooksey, and they're learning kind of the business aspect, but potentially maybe some of the riding aspect would be a little bit different, because we've got some riders. Bobby, how many times have you had press this year?
I don't think once in my life. Maybe one time outdoors, but other than that, I never had press.
Which is interesting.
That's garbage.
Because we just were saying,
because I don't ride during the week, but I think I did email them. I don't think I ever got.
We were just saying how much people recognize you from the reality show. You know, they want to see you. You've got a decent fan base here. You know, that's the whole issue that I have with press. That here's a liberal in me. It should be one for all or not kind of a thing. You know, maybe have a different
Johnny,
class.
It's not liberal. It's equal racing, because we're trying to keep an equal platform to separate. So it's not everybody wins. It's let's give a level playing field.
Like I'm not going to name no names, but there's dudes that didn't qualify for the night show or the race the weekend before that are still out there in press, to where there's guys that did qualify and can't get press.
So I'm majorly confused, and Chris and Johnny, I'm not a journalist. How does
Neither am I. Just so you know.
Listen, neither am I.
Comedian analyst here. Everyone calls me a journalist, and I'm not.
How does press day sell tickets? And that's a sincere question. I'm confused on this comment. I just would like clarification. How does press day sell tickets?
Okay, so it comes back from an old school deal where when you come into a town, you contact the local news. This is long before social media. You contact the local news. They come out, they get a shot. They tell the town, "Hey, look what's happening on at the stadium. Come on out and buy tickets." They're using that same business model to this day. But there's different ways to sell tickets. And honestly, I think if they just had open practice sessions and say, "Hey, everybody gets 2 practice sessions. We're going to film them. We're going to invite the press. The press can come down and talk to you guys." But then again, they're very selective. They'll only invite press that tells their narrative, which is stupid too. So the whole press day thing is just really.
But this is what I find. Go ahead, Bobby. I'm sorry.
There's a press day at like 5 a.m. and then there's another press day for like the factory riders. So the 5 a.m. press, I'm pretty sure like the local news is out there, and when they get 7 a.m. up at 7 a.m. or whoever's watching the news at 7 a.m., it comes on like your local news station. And that's how they tell them about it. And then there's press day at like 2:00 in the afternoon for the factory dudes.
So here's what I don't understand.
In the morning one, right?
Yep. Morning press. Yep.
So what I don't understand is a company that's in the business of communicating is using 1982 methodology to try to sell press day to the TV crews when we have a thing called social media that makes, like Johnny said, open it up, because even Hunter Lawrence himself said it's a significant game changer being on press day. He even said it himself. Nobody has to blame Tristan for anything. Hunter said when he's got media day, it helps. Tire selection, pressure, setting
For
a triple
sure.
clamps.
Even with me, like my free practice, my first qualifier, my second qualifier, the last weekend or two, I was 10 seconds off in my first free practice. And then I was still like another 6 seconds off. And then I was 6 seconds faster in my last one. It got me in the show.
Yeah,
So
every
it
time
definitely
you get
takes
on the
time
track,
to
you're
get
going
used
to
to the
get
track.
better.
And then for my practice, I'm 450C or B practice, and it's the track's just chewed to its absolute worst, and it's tough out there.
Yeah, that track is hammered, huh?
Yeah, dude. That's why I don't really put it in like a quick time to my last qualifier, because I try to wait for everything to get a little tamed down. Because when you're like first practice, everything you're jumping wall to wall, trying to get into these freaking transitions, and you're almost killing yourself. So
And then here's the crazy part. You have Bobby and Tristan who are strategically figuring out how to make the night show. Then they go out and they build everything back up to 100%, which is what the A guys got to see, which Bobby and Tristan don't get to see, but then they qualify and then they got to go race it. I'm completely baffled.
I think something happened this weekend. They built the Dragons back for that first 250 heat race. They said they made the top one bigger, I guess, and I forget who went down, but he caused the pile up in that first 250 heat race.
But take it a step further, though, to what Bobby just said. This past weekend, how many times were the whoops changed from first practice to main event? Twice that I heard of?
Yeah, maybe they fixed it. I don't think they fixed it at all during qualifying, and then they might have fixed it.
But didn't they take one whoop out after one qualifying, then they took out another one, if I'm not mistaken?
Not that I know of. I don't remember.
Okay.
They claim they rolled them down before the night show because of rain. I did hear that. And they were significantly smaller in the night show, right?
They were smaller in the night show, but I don't think they took any out. But I do at the Houston the weekend before. Remember they had the start that goes through like the middle of the thing, but after the first rhythm section, after the Supercross triple, there wasn't a hump there, but like our last qualifier, they made the hump a lot bigger. So
yeah,
I remember the first qualifier and the second qualifier, the track or the obstacles were different. The one obstacle.
When they run the race in front of the starting line like they will this weekend, do they go and drag that afterwards? Or when you guys come off the gate, are you going across those acceleration lines into that right-hander?
I don't know.
I just cannot understand that for the life of me. So they have you guys coming up, taking a right, going right in front of the starting grid, and then you make another right-hander, and then the next heat race is sitting right there has got to go over. When the start is so incredibly important, it's like, again, if you look at decelerating for that right-hand turn, now anybody on the far inside, that gate's going to be more chewed up, because when you come out of the gate, you get a jump, and then you're essentially hitting cross ruts this way.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. Now, if they smooth it out like a BMX track, I'm cool with that, because then it doesn't screw with the start for you guys on the inside. But Chris, Johnny, you and I talked about that on the last one where they had him make a left-hander. They came up. Chris, you were saying that you thought they were going to go a little bit further before they made that 180 and went the other way. I don't know why you would screw with that. And again, Bobby and Tristan, you guys are the pros. Personally, for me, don't mess with the starting gate. Leave it where it is. That's hard enough as it is. Last thing you need is all these extra interruptions and hitting something when you're under full acceleration and the front wheel's this far off from your fender. Last thing you need is for something to add more to the acceleration of that bike. Just seems super sketchy and unnecessary in my eyes.
I will say I do like how the tracks have been designed this year. And Tristan, you were actually there at press day. You got to ride a little bit of it. Is this one of your favorite designs, or do you think that this is technically more challenging, so it's going to slow things down, or is it going to be more dangerous? I mean, what is your perspective on this track?
Yeah, so walking it was like really intimidating. Like it might be the scariest Supercross track I've walked, like as far as just for a race. I was like, wow, the triple was really peaky and looked big to me. The finish line was like really tall face. The whoops are absolutely massive. Like, and I think there's like 31 whoops or something. I could be wrong, but there's a bunch of whoops, including the Dragon's Back. And then the rhythms are like super steep, like they're really, really steep. So for me, I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm always careful to judge too quickly walking it. Cause then I get on my bike and my instincts kick in of riding Supercross. And I'm like, okay, I can hit that. And I just start doing it. But yeah, back to the track though. I think it's a really cool layout. I think it's going to produce some really exciting racing. Obviously having a whoop section into a Dragons, into a whoop section, that's probably going to be the talking point the whole night. I would assume, like if I'm the analyst out there, I'm like, look, whoops are hard enough when they're just, there's 10 of them and it's just one set that are built by a dozer. This weekend, we have a dozer set of whoops and then a loader set of whoops. So the second
Which
set of
one's
whoops
the bigger one? Is the smaller
the
one?
Loader. The loader set is the biggest. It's after the Dragon's Back. It's a right-hander and then a loader set. And those are typically like when the loader makes them, it just makes them different. Like I'm sure Bobby can relate. Like you ride them and they feel really big. The dozer sets are still big, but they're a little bit more round and forgiving, I would say. And I'm assuming the dirt out here has a little bit to do with that. Like maybe since it's obviously not rainy and gross right now, it's good weather. Maybe they were able to prep the track differently, so they busted out the loader. But yeah, that's going to be huge to me. Like I'm sure that's going to be a big part of the track. Like if you can get clean lines through the whoops, I mean that'll be huge. But the rest of the track we only get to ride parts of it, obviously. But still, it was big jumps.
No, and then Bobby, you haven't gotten to ride the track, and you're skipping this one like we've talked before because the people that just joined us now, it's a long travel transition to try to go from Florida to California. But what is your interpretation on where would the best passing points be, or for qualifying or whatever? What would you try to go? Would you try to just double everything and make it clean and fast, or would you focus on a certain section versus the other?
I usually like to watch like the qualifiers before me and see what everybody's doing, and then yeah, I try to go for like the normal lines. If they're 3-3-3 or 3 on off 3, I try to go for the big lines. But hey, like I said, it does get sketchy out there sometimes. So if I have to 2, I'll 2. But I think my strong point, I don't know, I feel like I'm pretty good in the corners. I have good corner speed, so that's my main spot to gain time and get time and probably pass.
But Johnny, you have to add another dynamic. You talking about Jason Anderson passing, or are you talking about Cooper Webb's passing? That was just a joke. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Oh, Tristan. So LCQ, you're always in that race. That is one of the most fun races.
That's nice, Cooksey. Jesus.
What?
Hey, he's not wrong. This year I've literally been in every LCQ, so I have no room to talk. But
no, I mean that is a dangerous race to be in. Do you worry? Do you ride? What's your opinion? Like a lot of people are like, gloves are off. It's like, let's fight to the death. Do you get mad? What's your story on the LCQ? How do you see the LCQ?
Yeah, it's a good question actually, because in the past I would look at LCQs like, oh my gosh, I'm in an LCQ. Like I'm terrified, I'm scared, whatever. Now I just look at it as an opportunity. You get another chance to race and get yourself in there. I mean, the reality of it is, we're like Bobby and I are privateers, and there's factory bikes that aren't making the main event. So, I know guys that are getting paid a hell of a lot more money than I'm getting paid, and they're not in the main event. And imagine the pressure they have. We're getting to the race, and that's in itself a win. If only people knew like all the backstory. You're like, just being here, I'm like so stoked to be in Oakland right now, because obviously I'm my situation I think is a little bit better off than maybe Bobby's, but I definitely can relate. I know that struggle. Just like if I didn't have a few sponsors help me this weekend, there's no way I'm coming to this race. So anyways, like I think that the LCQ, it's just the way you look at it. It's like anything in life, it's just perspective. But I definitely think you have to be extremely careful to leave a door open. It's such a short race. If you have any mentality other than going forward and just sprinting with everything you have, and your heart rate is going to be absolutely maxed, if you're not in that mentality, you're not going to probably make the main. But the LCQ is sometimes a good opportunity though, because whenever the heat race is always really, really stacked. So like last year, a couple of my main events that I made, I did it through the LCQ. And I felt like I had a better chance because the quality of guys you're racing against for that bubble spot are a little bit less than the heat race, obviously, because in the heat, the guy that's like one spot from not making the main is still on a factory bike typically. So it's like really stacked. So, I mean, it's all just the way you look at it.
When you see one of the factory guys go down in the heat race and you're going to be in the LCQ, or you're like, damn, there goes one of my spots.
Yeah, like definitely like at I forget what race it was. San Diego, I got 10th in my heat, so I missed it by 1. And I think it was Plessinger that went down in the whoops, I want to say. And then he got going and I could see him coming. And like, yeah, I mean, but obviously it would be, I'm not the type of guy where like, if it was like the last lap and it was for the spot, obviously the gloves are off, but like, yeah, it was like still a few laps to go and he was coming. I'm like, it'd be so silly to just clean out a guy who's obviously going faster. And then the reality is there's still a chance that I wasn't going to get in, but yeah, it's tough. You like those guys make mistakes too, but they're just their speed and the jumps they're hitting when they're going quad and they're blitzing the whoops so fast, they can make up a lot of time. So you have to be like, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it helps. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I would be totally okay with a few of them falling down.
Hey, Tristan, you'd mentioned, and Bobby, this is for you as well, with the situation that you have with your sponsors. If you got an opportunity for a fill-in ride, would you be able to go over to that with little to no resistance?
Sure. I'll start just because I definitely can relate from last season. I got offered to do the Butler Brothers ride after Indy and then before Seattle. And I ended up not doing it just because I think that that's a gray area too in our sport is like a fill and ride is obviously an amazing opportunity depending on what setup and what team, but yeah, like I'm sure Bobby can relate to, like you put a lot of time into your program. Like I've tried for, months. And since last season, actually, I've already been preparing for this season, getting sponsors and just trying to have people on board. And it's almost like I feel loyal to them. Like without them, I wouldn't be able to make a living. So I'm like, I would hate to just jump ship unless it was a really good opportunity. And I think it's not like a secret that a lot of the fill-in rides don't come with money. I think it's just a great opportunity for the motorcycle, which is huge. Don't get me wrong. That's awesome. That's obviously like, 90% of it is you'd want to just go for the bike. But I think that the situation would have to be really sweet to make it make sense.
Dylan,
well, I remember when Kevin Morantz, I think it was the same ride you were talking about, wasn't it, Tristan? Didn't Kevin get a chance to ride that?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think they gave him one day on the bike and then he had to go try to race it. And then because he didn't do so well, they didn't give him another weekend. And I guess that's the part that I was kind of curious about because you, Tristan, obviously you and I have worked in the past together and stuff. And I know how you handle your sponsors. It's more of a friendship. It goes beyond just an exchange of, product for services and being paid for that. You really invest in the people. Bobby, you do the same thing. You've got a great reputation. And I think it's such a difficult one because, as you just said, Tristan, a lot of these guys that get to fill in, it might be a couple $1,000s, if anything, but they also have to pay all their own expenses. So even if they got a couple dollars, they're really not going ahead anywhere. Now, granted, it would be nice to have access to that factory bike, but do you guys know off the top of your head, or maybe Chris, Johnny, you guys may already know, like with Bloss getting the opportunity at PC, is that for the entire East Coast or is that a 2 race? Like what's that quote unquote offer look like and what's the performance stipulations involved?
You want me to talk about Bloss's?
Yeah.
I was told Bloss is getting roughly $5,000 a weekend for the whole season. And his was a deal. And I think they're all different. Like Tristan said, his opportunity was different. It all depends on the situation, what they need and what if they're going to get you out of your team program, or they're going to have you for the whole year. It varies quite a bit. Is that right, Tristan?
For sure. Yeah. I listened to something and I heard that Bloss, like you said, it was like a pretty good situation where he was just getting maybe at start money per weekend or however, but he has to get his expenses or whatever. But sounds like a great opportunity. I think with Mitch and PC, it doesn't matter if he said, hey, you'd have to pay me this much. You'd probably still find a way to jump on that just because it's very rare that you're going to get that opportunity. But yeah, I've heard just from people that I race with and other, people in the industry, a lot of the fill-in rides, it's more like the opportunity and the exposure it could give you and having some good results. Because Bobby's bike and my bike it's not going to be close to what those guys are on. You know what I mean? And the testing alone, like, we don't really get opportunities to test our bikes and get suspension better and get all the little things, wired out for you. You're hopping on someone's platform that probably is like proven for like 5 years. They have all this data to back it up, and different people that have rode it that can probably know more than we do, about it. And that I think is super valuable. And just the learning experience would be huge. So maybe like if the right opportunity came, and even if you were to lose a little bit of money, you would maybe do it just because of, hey, like this experience is priceless, and I could, learn a lot and get a lot in the back end, get a lot from it. But I think for where I'm at in the 450 class, and with the way I run my program, which is we have a hauling service, Next Level Racing, that takes my bike to all the races. Like, I don't think it makes sense for guys like me to just like abandon ship, because if it's only going to be a one race deal, like the BTO ride that I was offered was just going to be for Seattle. And then like, it wasn't really an option for the next week. And again, kind of like to your point about riding it one day, I was going to get to ride press day on it if I got into press, basically. So you're like showing up on a motorcycle that you've never rode. And my old saying has always been like, my bikes growing up were always really not good, and they were really junky. And I always just said, like, even if it's a piece of crap, it's a piece of crap that I know. You know what I mean? And that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Well, the catalyst for me was when you go and you look at Kilroy getting a fill in. I don't know, maybe Chris, how long did Kilroy get a chance to ride that bike before he raced it?
Well, he was on a Yamaha, but he wasn't on a club Yamaha. I think it was like a week or two.
And now he's got 2 broken arms, to Tristan's point, that now he's riding a bike that he couldn't figure out, couldn't shake down, 2 broken arms. And now you get into that risk return payoff, because like Tristan said, yeah, you get an opportunity to ride a bike and you might get some exposure for it. But where's that risk return payoff, and how much of that? I don't know the nature of the accident, but 2 broken wrists. I mean, that's brutal.
Coach, I actually think he had a considerable amount of time. And that's one thing I think that club is actually unlike the other teams in the sense of they're not just going to throw a guy on there. So real quick, we had a question from one of the guys in the chat room. They want to know about tech after the events. And I want to know too, have either of you guys, I'll start with you, Bobby, have either of you guys ever had your bike checked out, or what's to keep you guys from doing completely illegal things? Because they're probably only going to check the podium. Am I right, Bobby?
Yeah, they don't check our bikes after the race. We go through tech Friday before, and realistically, they check maybe your foot pegs and your spokes and your grips. I remember the one year I had a rip in the end of my grip, and they wouldn't let me out on the track. I had to change my grips, and then yeah. Other
Tristan,
than that, no, they don't check your bike after the race.
Yeah, I haven't had an issue after the race. Typically, the privateer. I mean, even most of the teams, I would assume probably not, unless you're like a big factory team. But yeah, I've never had any issue. And then like I've had people that have issues with sound testing and stuff. And I'm like, I run a stock pipe on my bike. I don't even have an aftermarket pipe. So you don't have an issue with sound. I'm like, what are they going to say? It's like, this is the bike that they sell from the manufacturer. Like, you know what I mean? Like it has to fit sound. So yeah, I think that the factory teams, I've definitely seen some of the KTM bikes after the race or even after practice pulled off, and they're checking it out, and they're, double checking everything. But yeah, like Bobby said, I mean, some of the outdoors, like not busted on them, but literally like, I think your bike could be wheeled in, barely raceable, and it'd be fine. But then he's saying like the grips would be an issue. Like, that's funny to me, because go figure, that's how it is. Like one weekend, there's not like you could literally ride like a bicycle in there, and they'd be fine with it. Like, yeah, you can race it. And then the next weekend, like you have a little tear in your grip, like, yep, no, you can't race. Yeah. So
yeah, back to the sound thing. I remember like I'm on the same page. I got a stock pipe. If I don't pass sound, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
But, I seen like what's his name? Alex Nagy. He has stock pipes too. He didn't pass, so he had to make like something to put in his pipe. Like what did he put in it? It was like
spark arrestor or something.
Yeah. He made and like duct taped it or like wired it in there somehow. And like just because he didn't pass down, but he's on a stock pipe, and you can have a factory.
And then he takes it out to go ride.
Yeah.
Well, on the subject of sound, how come we go in the same venue a week later than Monster Trucks, and they're running straight headers, and we are under sound? I for the life of me, I do not understand this. Same exact venue, same governing body. I mean, I know AMA's in there, whatever AMA is anymore, but why are we even under sound check?
I have no idea.
That's a good question, Coach.
It just doesn't even begin to make sense to me. Monster trucks. I mean, I don't think there's anything more deafening. Maybe a top fuel dragster that makes more noise than a monster truck. What are we doing? What are we doing?
It's one of those things that we're doing it because we've done it, and that's the way we do it.
Well, that's just like Clear Channel. That's just like Clear Channel says the TV crew comes out at 5 a.m. because that's how we sell tickets. This is just. Hey, you know what Hey, Johnny, this is a circus, man. This is a circus.
Oh, you're gonna get Johnny in more
we know
trouble.
that they're good at running a circus, right? I mean, no jokes aside, they own a circus. So
that's my point, Johnny. That's my point. It's getting worse by the week.
It's not my monkeys. You don't know what regulation is telling them that you have to keep sound down. And I don't even know if there's a louder sound having one monster truck out there at one time versus 22 bikes, on the track. So I don't know. I mean, that's something to test, I guess, but I can't answer that. One of the questions in the chat, Bobby, was asking what could make you guys get closer to the gap between factory riders. What is something that you could have that would breach the gap, time-wise, bike-wise, whatever?
Honestly, probably for me, I've just been struggling with like my bike setup, my suspension, and like my rider triangle. I've been going through like different bar sets and try to find one that like I'm most comfortable with and to where I can be like more aggressive on the bike. Other than that, maybe suspension changes or just being like just dialing in my bike, I mean, yeah, obviously work out and train a little harder and ride during the week, which would help, but for the most part, just being comfortable out there and being able to be aggressive, I think. Like
so
other tracks
almost everything.
Yeah. Other tracks are more difficult than others. Like Tampa last weekend wasn't that difficult. But it's just like when we're out there, like my qualifier, like I said, track's chewed up. So just being aggressive through all the ruts and just getting over everything clean and trying to stay low to the ground and just trying to be quick. It is tough.
Tristan, what could level up your program to be more competitive towards the factories?
Yeah, I agree with Bobby for sure. Like, I think number one, though, you obviously got to have time on a supercross track. Like, if you're not riding, like what I think is a big misconception is like, if you see someone on a gate at a supercross, like, and they're racing and they made the night show, they're really good riders because like, I can honestly say, like, I train my ass off and it's still really hard to get to qualify and to race and let alone a main event. You know what I mean? So I feel like, first off, there should be a lot of respect for anybody that you see. Even the people that are trying that are really close are super good riders, but if you're not riding supercross, like at least have a good base of supercross riding and you kind of know how to get across the obstacles and everything, it's going to be super hard to make it. Like that's number one. You got to have access to tracks. You got to be on the bike, I think. But then like to Bobby's point, something like where I'm at, I feel like we make like a 10% gain on a day just when my bike feels good. Like whereas I could have perfect sleep and I could have my diet perfect and everything is good, but like I may get a little gain from that, like a 1% type deal, which is still huge. But the bike, I mean, when I feel really comfortable, I can do things with less effort. And I always like, sometimes I will struggle with a bike setup. And to be fair, supercross is really tough because like you need your bike super stiff. But then, our track is absolutely hammered when we're riding it during the day for qualifying. So you have to soften it up a lot of the time. And then in the night show, it's slippery a lot of times too. Like the dirt will be good, but then it goes away. And if it's too stiff, you're like losing traction. So there's like all these things I'm learning that make a big difference. And I think the factory guys having a really good setup and also having good people to know how to adjust per condition probably makes a big difference. But yeah, like comfort is so key because I always say like I almost sometimes forget that like, hey, I still know how to ride pretty good. Like when I'm riding like comfortable, because you go through like a couple weeks where you're struggling with your bike or you're not feeling good on a certain track, and you almost start like doubting your like abilities. Like, am I even a good rider anymore? But then you like have a day where you're like, oh, my bike feels good, and I can put it anywhere I want it, and like my time. Like if you look at the lap times from most weekends, from the fastest qualifier to the 40th place guy, it's not like it used to be. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it seems closer, the gap. Like I remember it being like 6-7 seconds. A lot of times it still is, but there's times where there's only 4 seconds, you know, from where I'm qualifying versus like the Chase Sexton or Tomac or whatever, which don't get me wrong, still a lot of time. But depending on the track and how it is, it's like, if you really think about that, that's not, I mean, that could be, if you're not hitting a quad, I mean, or one of the rhythms, that could be a second and a half, a second, you know, another second here. So I don't know. It's
48 to 54 was first.
Yeah, so that's still a pretty good bit of time difference. But
yeah, but that's not that much. That's not
it's only, much. It's only 6 seconds to your point, though, Tristan. That's only 6 right there. Tristan, what was the last year you raced amateur?
It's a good question. I want to say 2016 or 17, 2016. I want to say is my last year. I was like really racing amateur, and then I just went pro to try and make money, basically.
And you went pro outdoors, though, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So it's kind of like weird because people are like, oh, when did you go pro? I did my first pro race in 2017, but I didn't actually start racing professionally until 2020, which was like when I started Supercross, was in 2020. So I don't know. I dabbled with it, I guess you could say, but that was like kind of how Bob, I love hearing like what Bobby's story is, because that's literally how it was for me. And my best friend's a fireman, and he had a van, and he's like, hey, like we should go race pro. And I just got my license. And I'm like, well, there's no way I can race pro. Like, I don't think I'm good enough. He's like, dude, he convinced me. He's like, we got to go. And like my whole family, everyone's like, don't go. You're not ready. Like, don't do it. And I just went anyways and qualified at Southwick and was like, just loved it. So I just started chasing it that way, but was working construction, trying to afford to do it. And then I wasn't riding. And then it's like, you end up going down this rabbit hole. So it took me like a few years to figure out to where I could actually like race, like really do it. So.
How'd you get your Supercross card? Did you go through the road to Supercross, or how'd you get your Supercross card?
Yeah, so I actually dabbled with Arena Cross. Like at the end of the Amsoil Arena Cross stint, I was just like trying to do like a 1 or 2 arena crosses. I never got any points from it, but I would like race the night show and try and make the main, which is how you get your points, I believe. But I got it through the futures. So I want to say, it was when it was a little harder back then. I know like some of my friends that are doing futures now, or not now it's really hard because you're racing actual Supercross, but like a couple of years ago, it seemed like they kind of made it a little more easy where you could go through like mini-O's and get points and stuff. I was doing the futures, which is like the amateur day after the Supercross, but yeah, really good prep. Honestly, it was crazy. Like we had such little time on the track, and it was kind of like a little bit of a shit show the way it was ran, but it was still like, it was tough. So yeah, I got it that way though.
Bobby, how'd you get your Supercross card? Did you go road to Supercross or through Arena Cross?
Well, fast forward back to 2013, 10 years ago. I actually podiumed Loretta's in 250A, and yeah. I got it that way, but I got hurt in 2014, and I guess every 2 years you got to renew it or something. And I never like applied for my Supercross license within them 2 years, which I really regret, which I wish I would have done. But I had to go back through all over again, the Supercross futures. So I got it back. I think my first Supercross was like in 2020. So it took me like from 2015 when I turned pro to like all them years. Like it was different rules every single year. Like I remember 2017, I went and I got that IB Corp ride with the reality TV show thing, but I never got it through that because the reality was I really only rode the bike like one time. So I never really had like proper training on the bike to go up against like these factory KTM riders that like pretty much blew me out the water. Yeah, I whole shot and did a lap and stuff, but I never got my license through there. So I had I think 2019, I got it done through like the Supercross futures.
Where did you practice Supercross? And that would be for both you and Tristan. Where did you guys get your teeth cut in to practice Supercross before you went to the races? Did you go to a public track or did you go to a private track?
Bobby.
I went to, when I started in 2020, I was training out of Club MX.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was at GPF.
I didn't train with like a group of guys.
Okay.
Yeah, the Georgia practice facility is where I started riding Supercross. I had rode with RJ Hampshire a little bit. He had a private track in Brooksville, I want to say. And I kind of knew RJ just from racing him locally at like Dade City and Florida stuff. And I'd rode him, and I went out there and rode a few times, but mainly at GPF is where I kind of started riding Supercross before my first Supercross.
Hey,
Well,
Tristan,
another reason why I ask all that question. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead, bud.
I was going to ask Tristan, some of the guys in the chat are asking where you're from.
I'm from Florida boy.
Then what were you doing racing Southwick on NESC?
So I love the sand. I really love the sand. And I said, if I have any chance of making it into the motos, I probably should go to a sand track. And I qualified 14th at my first race, actually. So
That's sick.
And the reason why I was asking that question, guys, is I love what Tristan said. And Chris, you and I talked about it when we got to ride with Hopper. And you look at how fast Hopper is, and you're like, how can anybody be faster than that? And then I've had the privilege of being at the track when Tristan's there, and you go, how in the hell can anybody go any faster than that? And you see Bobby, and you're like, there's no way anybody can go faster than that. And then you go to a Supercross race, and you see the guys are 4 seconds off the pace, and you're like, how? And I like what Tristan said, everybody in that LCQ is a bunch of bad mofos. I mean, super fast dudes. And if we look at the fact that there's no true development program for these guys to set a bike up, everything Bobby said, setting a bike up, having a bike that's healthy, consistent training on it. Yes, we all know the journeyman's journey is pretty difficult, traveling, practice, trying to work on your bikes, get to the races, get everything done. But I'm still amazed if you look at, and I know people are going to hate me in the chat room for bringing this up, but you look at baseball, right? There's a 1, a 2, and a 3. And then you look at football, and there's a 1, a 2, and a 3. Then you look at moto, and it's like Loretta's A1. And you're just like, how are you guys supposed to even get there? And that's the part I don't understand, why we're not stepping back and looking at this, because there's all this talent. And I know not everybody's cut out for Supercross. You guys have done a great job because you've been able to be a hybrid of both. But how many people do we know that just couldn't really cut their teeth in the Supercross side and they became an outdoor specialist? Chris, I know you've been declaring this since day one. Let the team be, this guy is a Supercross specialist, let this guy be an outdoor specialist. But I'm just thinking, how are these guys supposed to get good? What's the subject we always talk about is the whoops. It's like, how are you guys supposed to practice it when most practice facilities, and Tristan, I don't remember how Josh had GPF set up. Were they to scale peak to peak, distance to distance, gap to gap, depth? Were they to scale?
Yeah, so Josh's whoops were very good because Josh is really big on the whoops. Like he was always, that was his thing. I'd say the rest of his track lacked. Like it was a kind of more of an arena cross track that I was riding, but he had big whoops. But I definitely I have crashed in the whoops a lot of times, and a lot of them were at GPF. But I have an opinion actually on what you're saying. I agree. And I think that's something that is tough with when you look at the local fast guy versus when you line him up at, Oakland Supercross, is there's so many variables that I never prepared for growing up for racing Supercross. I don't think that it's a fair representation sometimes, because there's guys that I think get chewed up and spit out in our sport, and Supercross especially, because they could be so fast. Like I can't tell you how many times I moved to California this off season for 3 months, and I'd ride with these amateur kids that are absolutely ripping on the Supercross track. And then they get to a Supercross and they don't make the night show. But it's like, they're going as fast as me pretty much. And I'm like, I consider myself, when I'm riding good, like going pretty fast, but they're going like really, really good. And I think that it just comes back to, on race day, on a track that no one's rode before, with all the pressure on you and the money on the line and whatever else, like some people just can't ride like themselves. And I think that I struggle really bad with that too, where like there's times where I just feel like I'm not riding like myself on race day on these different tracks, and I'm struggling. And it's like, if it was like during the week, like just out riding, like, and I could tap into that mentality, I could probably go a lot faster. But I think that's the art of where experience comes in, and separating the good from the great, is those guys are just so gnarly. Like the top 3, top 5, I mean, really the whole field, but especially those top guys. It's just insane how fast they can go on these tracks that are just destroyed. So,
well, Tristan and Bobby, to counteract that, that's part of the reason why that press day is so important, is because you can kind of shake out some of those nerves a little bit. And then I consider you guys pretty much damn near the 1% of the 1% of the pros, right? We've talked for an hour now about how setup is so key. And one of the things that you guys are lacking is you guys are lacking the resources to test constantly. I don't think that there's a big gap in talent wise between you guys. I think there's a big gap in equipment wise when you go on the track. And like I just brought up the times here, and there's a 6-second difference between 40th place and first place. But if you go into the 30 to 20, 15 where you guys are at, there's a 3 to 4 seconds there. And that to me is damn near setup, because you guys know, Tristan, you just said it, when you're feeling good and you've got a good setup, you're able to hammer the whoops. You're able to have that bike go under you. You're one with the bike. You're not really squeezing. You're not getting arm pump with it. It's 1000% setup. And that's why I feel like the sport, just like you were saying, spits these guys out, and they don't get a good opportunity to share what they have because it's so fleeting. And you have to be lucky. You absolutely have to be lucky to get a ride somewhere and have proper testing to really show what you're worth. That's why I really wish that eventually, with what Arena Cross is doing and what World Supercross is doing, we might have a stock class that you guys could show up, and literally it's more about talent than it is equipment. But I will shut up now because I like to talk.
I think it'd be great. Bring back the Kawasaki Race of Champions, where you just have 20 bikes. They're exactly bone stock. You can do your clickers and do whatever you want and go run with your brum. I don't know why that hasn't come back in popularity. Seriously, think about that. How cool would that be?
That's what they did back.
Cool.
That's like my
What's that, Bobby?
They used to really line everybody up on a stock bike.
Literally,
Yeah,
they would bring 20 bikes that were exactly the same. You pulled a stick out, and they were numbered 1 through 20, absolutely identical, including fuel, and you go out and you race it.
That's sick.
It did suck though, Coach, because I was a bigger kid. They did this on 80s.
Absolutely.
I was a bigger
Absolutely.
kid, and all you did is set the sag, and I needed stiffer springs, and it
Yep.
was borderline scary, but it was fun.
Well, that's where, like what Johnny is saying, it's like if you were to level the playing field, there's always going to be that discrepancy because you are so tall. Somebody's a little bit shorter in stature, strength to weight ratios. But I don't know. Would it be better, Chris? I apologize that you're bigger than King Kong over there. Would it be better to have 20 bikes? I think it would do. The sport would be better off because then what we've done is we've leveled the playing field, and we'd see the talent of Tristan versus Bobby with 95% of the variables being the same. If Bobby's a little heavier than Tristan or vice versa, that might be a little bit of a negative. But the bigger issues of, what do you call it, Johnny? The unattainables, on the bike.
Yeah, no, there'd have to be variables, and there'd have to be certain things that you could change, but it would be nice to have like a tire sponsor. And then it would be cool, like what they do in MotoGP is, hey, this year it's Aprilia bikes. Next year it's so on and so forth, so that you buy a certain bike and you guys go race that. But yeah, the suspension thing would make a difference because, Cooksey's a fat ass, and then you've got some guys that are not.
Thanks, Johnny.
It would be crazy to have everyone on the same caliber of motorcycle. That would be weird. But I also want to go on record, though, and say, in case like anyone's watching this and like going crazy right now, obviously the skill of the top guys is what makes them the top guys, no matter what. Like 100%. I've trained with Chase Sexton and I've rode with these guys. Like they work so hard and they deserve everything they have 100%. But there's no secret that obviously their motorcycle is always the best too. So it's like, I think it's the perfect combination. A good example is Eli Tomac. I'm a huge Eli Tomac fan. Like I want him to win every time he's racing. I just think he's a beast. But when I watch him, there wasn't long ago that people would be like, oh, talking bad about Eli, saying that he couldn't finish a series. He would crash. He would make all these mistakes. It's amazing how a bike, when you're comfortable, can make you a guy that, maybe he's a one-hit wonder. Sometimes he's going to win. Then other times he'll just be in the top 5. And then he's just dominant when he loves his bike and it all comes together. I like to think that like the top guys are the best no matter what. They're the best riders. They hang it out the most. They're obviously probably getting paid really well. So their risk versus reward is really good. They're like, hey, I'm going to really hang it out versus me and Bobby. You're like, if it's between us, not being able to collect our bonuses and our purse money for the weekend because we go crash in the first qualifier, is it really worth it? Like, we got to make sure that we're durable too. But yeah, I always love that argument because Rob, you come from, I know you have a background with like endurance cycling and all that. Cyclists, it's the same argument. Like I remember when Lance Armstrong got busted, it's like, okay, well, if, in my opinion, of course, if every single person was doping, he would still win. If no one was doping, I still think Lance probably would have won. He's like, I think he was the best regardless, but he also, and I could be wrong, obviously this is more your area, but I just think of it from that aspect. Like they're still the best guys. Like, Eli Tomac, I think is still the best motorcycle racer, but anyways, sorry.
No, you're exactly right. And you also don't need to put a caveat on this show because our opinions are not influenced by.
And Tristan, I think you're too humble sometimes, dude. You're a badass motherfucker.
But Johnny, you and Chris and I have talked about this off the record. How sad is it that these top guys have to feel as if they put a caveat on it? Because whether it's the soft youth that thinks that if you're just stating an observation that it's all hatred, it's all you hate somebody, you're talking smack, versus you're just discussing, as Tristan said, Eli not feeling comfortable on the Cowie. We all know he wanted certain things done. Cowie said they weren't going to do it. He went elsewhere. That's not talking crap on Cowie. That's just reiterating what happened. But Tristan, let me turn the balls back around on the other side of the court. What if you got to ride Sexton's bike for 4 weeks with his factory mechanic and all the resources? If you were to look at, you jumped on Sexton's bike, he is talented 100%. Take the bike that you're familiar with. Let's say we go out to Moto Sandbox, a track that you've ridden a bunch at. You go out there and you run a 20-minute moto. And then if we can keep all variables same, you get 4 weeks on Sexton's bike. How much faster do you think you're going to be on Sexton's bike after you got acclimated to it?
Yeah, it's a great, that would be like a dream scenario to be able to even do this test. Like that gets me excited even talking about it. I don't know. Like I truly think what I would like to predict with something like that would be that the way I feel when I'm super comfortable and when I'm at, my local track, WW, practicing Supercross or whatever, and I'm just, everything feels good and I'm putting it where I want it in the turns, I'm blitzing the whoops super fast, I'm pushing through the rhythms. That feeling would probably be amplified even more, being that it's a factory bike, right? And then my confidence, knowing that I'm on the best bike, I think that's no one talks about it either, is when you don't believe in your bike or your equipment, or you kind of know you're like, okay, this thing isn't super durable, it might break, or, oh, this isn't great, whatever. That mentally affects you a lot in the way you ride. So I believe maybe having that bike under you, you're going to probably go fast no matter what, just because you're going to be like, I'm on a factory Honda or whatever. But yeah, I don't know that we'll ever be able to fully know that end result, but it would probably make you ride a lot more efficient too. You'd probably be a lot less tired, being that you're going to be on a bike you're not fighting it as much, I would assume.
And Johnny, I do want to say this, Tristan Lane has been helping Rylan up at WW kind of figure out these whoops. The three of us were texting behind the scenes. That's kind of his Achilles heel. So Tristan, thank you very much. Rylan is a product of our amateur development program. And obviously
so the secret is you just take some
whoops.
Viagra and you close your eyes and you just hit it ninth gear pinned, right?
Rylan's awesome. He's a good rider. I told him too, like I struggle. Whoops have been my biggest hurdle. Like, and there's no secret. I'm super open to it because I've crashed so many times. But what's funny is I feel like I'm good in the whoops when I'm comfortable and confident. And obviously being lanky, I'm sure Bobby's the same way. When you hit them right, I feel like I'm good in them. But I told Rylan, I've told all my buddies getting into Supercross, I'm like, it's horrible to say, but you're going to crash in them and you're going to get a lot of those licks, out of the way fast, but you learn. And it's almost like when you aren't afraid of them anymore, it changes the game, because I think I was afraid of them for so long, still am, but that makes it, the whoops are like a straightaway to you when you're not afraid of them, but when you look at
viewers, Tristan, where do you point your eyes when you're going through whoops? If you're pointing at the whoop in front of you, or are you looking at like 3-4 down the road?
Yeah, I'm working on that still. Obviously, I think it's common sense. You don't want to be looking into the gullies of the whoops. You should be looking way far ahead, and it makes it feel a lot easier when you do it like that. But what I think is hard is the opening 3 whoops. If you set your bike on a plane in the opening 3 to 4 whoops, The rest of it, I could put a guy that's never rode a dirt bike on my bike mid whoop, and if he just stayed still, he's going to probably be fine going through him. It doesn't chop the throttle. But the issue is, the art, in my opinion, is the guys that can set their bike up, go to that third whoop, skip the second big, the first big one, the second whoop. That is where the skill is, in my opinion. You look at a guy like Roxon. I mean, he can put his bike on a plane so well in the whoops, and I still struggle with that. Sometimes I eat the whoop too deep, if that makes sense. Like I hit the second whoop too low, and then it, makes my bike upset.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still working at it. I feel like it'll take me probably quite a bit longer to really have it mastered, but I think the more you do it, it's just like anything, repetitions. You just got to have safe repetitions of not crashing, and then you're going to build your confidence and your skills.
Good stuff.
Amateurs practice to get it right, and professionals practice to not get it wrong. Bobby, same question as you. I know comparison is a theft of joy, so we're not going to sit here and argue that, hey, with a factory bike, anybody would win a championship or whatever. The best comparison is comparison of yourself. And therefore, let's just say you got a bike. And I know, we talked at the beginning of this before I let you guys go that, hey, you've been buying bikes off of Facebook Marketplace. Like, you don't have the best equipment, unfortunately. Let's just say on a minute lap time, that's your most comfortable, whatever you're doing, as soon as you get a good bike that you've spent 6 months practicing on, do you believe you'd be 3 to 6 seconds faster against yourself with right equipment?
I don't know about 6, but I can see like 3 or 4 for sure. I mean, like Tristan said, like if I was on Sexton's bike, I'd be smiling the whole time until I ran out of gas. I mean, confidence.
So you
goes
guys
a
would
long
not be
way.
going to the LCQ, is what would happen. You guys would be going straight to the main event, and that's.
I think so. I mean,
I think that's extremely humble and realistic. I think it's very humble and realistic, though, Bobby. So. Yeah, I agree.
I agree too, and that's the whole ideology behind the stock class. Because I love you guys. That's why I'm saying, you fuckers, you guys, the privateers are the guys that are the most passionate. The guys that are making the money, they're not willing. You guys aren't making that much money, and yet you're still showing up to risk your lives. That says that you guys are ready to sacrifice pretty much more than the next guy. I'm not trying to okay, that was a weird, ironic way of saying don't compare yourself. I'm just saying that there should be a smaller gap between equipment when it comes to racing, because you guys don't get to spend as much time on the motorcycle to really hone in your skills as much as the other guys that have so much stuff. I just wish there was a stock class that gave people better opportunities. And that's why I'm upset with the amateur stuff, because kids get factory stuff as little kids. They put too much pressure on their families, and they get this weird ideology behind them that they're better than other people based on some of their opportunities, when really factory teams should be looking at riders that are in the professional ranks to then fill in and take rides from other people. We shouldn't be having a list of 100 or 200 riders that are B85 riders that already have their future planned out for being the next champion. I think that's ridiculous. You should let kids go through high school, be able to have a plan B, to where if this dream of racing motorcycles doesn't come to fruition, they're at least left with an education to where they could make a decent living. And that's where I find it hard that there's a weird gap there, that there's a small little bit of brainwashing potentially that goes on from a young age. But I'm going to shut up, and I know you guys need to go. So you guys could comment on that, but I want everybody that has watched this, go in the description and help these guys out. These guys are so passionate about it. They love it. Look at Tristan. He was just saying that he's a massive Tomac fan, even though the guy is racing against him. It's sometimes when you race against people, you want to, like, I don't like that guy because he's beating me. But these guys are just they love the sport so much, and they could use your guys' support. So
yeah,
Bobby,
the reality of it, it's just so gnarly, man. Like, I give everybody out there respect 100%. Like Tristan, I'm just as big as a fan as he is. Like, after my LCQ, I get smoked. I'm running up in the stands trying to watch the main events, you know. I'm just as much as a fan as I am a rider. So, I mean, we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it, right?
So
And
Bobby,
right.
I'm still laughing thinking about you buying somebody's bike on, Facebook Marketplace, who's like this vet rider who told his wife, this bike sucks, I got to get a new one. And then they go to the Supercross and you're out there in the night show on the bike he used to have. So that's awesome, dude.
My first year Supercross, not my first year, the 2020 year, I bought like this Yamaha 250. The dude used it for mud bogging. That's why I was always like that mud bogger scene. But he literally sunk it underwater and shit. Like, yeah, I think I replaced the piston in it and shit and cleaned it up. But other than that, it made main events, so it was definitely cool.
So
sketchy.
Sorry, my phone died.
No, I'm surprised that you're still in here, dude. Because we
Don't
talked
worry,
about earlier
Tristan.
that
We
you
all
were-
want to do that when Johnny starts talking, so it's all good.
Yeah,
No, my
everybody
phone-
kind of tunes off. I've been really trying to shut the fuck up during this conversation and let the superstars actually talk.
Superstars. That's another thing. Everybody, like some people, it's all different. Like some people see us as superstars. We're like the hometown heroes and stuff. But on paper, when you see us getting like 37th, 30th and stuff, it's like, oh, that guy sucks. But then again, it's like just a win to get out there and be top 40 is a win in my eyes, let alone make a main event. That's super hard to do.
Well, like I always say to Chris and Johnny, if anybody thinks they can do better, your helmet's hanging right there and there's your gear. Go show me how it's done there, cowboy.
Just go buy
Like
a bike
for a
off
guy-
Facebook Marketplace.
For a guy like me, I'm always traveling around and around. I don't even practice during the week. So I go from Saturday, not riding all week, to lining back up in my free practice on Saturday. So I'm just like sometimes I even question myself, what am I doing out here? Like, I feel like a real goon. I feel like Johnny out there. So I'm like, I can barely even
Dude,
hang on.
straight up, man. I need the whole bottle of Viagra to go ride a supercross track these days because I'm not ready for it. Absolutely not ready for it. So I will sit here and let you guys do all that. Arena Cross, what they are doing is they are letting fans say, hey, if I want Bobby Piazza to get top 12, I could literally give him $1,000, $10,000 if he does that, and it'll go into an account. And if you don't do it, well, I could use it for another rider. I really like this integration with giving the fans a little bit of a connection with the riders to be able to motivate them. What do you guys think about an integration like that?
It's fantastic. It needed to be done a long time ago. And the guys at the Arena Cross, Robbie and those guys, they're just doing a killer job. They're just simply listening and giving the riders what they need, giving the fans what they want. I don't think this is not rocket science. Think about that. Just give the riders what they need, a legitimate living, and give the fans what they want. They want to see bar-to-bar action. They want to be able to interact with these guys. We've talked about it on the show before. If you just let something like Netflix bring these personalities to fruition, where people could go down the street and actually talk to these guys, or go in the pits and be able to talk to these two guys, that's what's going to be a game changer. And Arena Cross lets you do it. So I think it's brilliant.
Look at Bobby. He's got fans all up there trying to talk to him right now.
I don't know about fans,
Tristan and
but-
Bobby, honest question though. What do you guys think about that? If you could log into a thing and say, hey, I could potentially go to this race and I could get $5,000 just for showing up because the fans want to see me there. Would that be a motivation for you guys to do a whole series or something? Because it travels a lot.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty sweet. It'd be something different, and it'd be awesome. Just to have someone betting on you, and then knowing, say someone bet on you to make the main event. It's $5,000. You're gonna push that much harder to try to get that money. So definitely 5,000 compared to the 1,200 that we makes a big difference.
Yeah,
Listen
I think
to this.
that's awesome. That is so cool that they're even doing that. I love it. I've been keeping up on Instagram. Actually, on this point, I have a guy that's came on board to help sponsor me this year. His name's Jonathan Silva, and he's creating something called Fund My Race. And it's different than this, but it makes so much sense to me. And that's why I'm really excited about when he tells me all the details of it. essentially it's like a privateer like Bobby and I can create a page under Fund My Race, this business, and then you're able to have random donors that can go on your page. It's like has all of your race results, has all of your event info, what you're doing, like all your pictures. It's like everything's attached to this page, and it gives them like an easy way to donate to you. And it's different than other people that have done stuff like this because he has all these different tiers you can do. And then he explained the whole thing to me, and he's going to be coming out with it soon. But it's really to this point though about how Arena Cross is doing it. It's like we just need opportunities for people that want to help, like the fans that are going to the race, or even people. I mean, if I had $1 for every time someone came up to me, hey, how can I help you? Like, I would love to support you somehow. But I think people truly don't know how. And it sounds selfish to be like, well, we need money, obviously, more financial. But there's so many opportunities out there. And there's a lot of privateers that do a good job at advertising themselves and kind of make resources or make it work for themselves in other ways. But I think this Jonathan's idea is super smart because like I had a guy 2 weekends ago come up to me and he works for Snap-on and he goes, hey, how could we sponsor you somehow? And I think a lot of people think like, oh, there's no way that we could just get my logo on your bike or on your gear. Like that's too much to ask. Like as a privateer, I'm sure Bobby's the same way. I can literally put make my helmet pink if I wanted to. And I could do anything I want, like if my gear, my bike, whatever. And we have no rules with that. So you can get really creative. So I feel like that's a cool opportunity that we do have. So Bobby, we actually do have some things going for us, at least like factory teams. They're limited, the factory riders. I guess we can do anything we want. We just need more of the money part, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, last weekend or 2 weekends ago, we were in Houston. I had like the whole crowd coming up. I was letting kids rev my bike and stuff, and like their parents and stuff. They're like, "How can I help you out?" They're giving me donations and stuff, taking pictures. I let all the kids start my bike, rev my bike. All the other riders are looking at me crazy, like, "How are you gonna let somebody rev your bike and this and that?" But in all reality, I'm here for a good time. I'm trying to make like when I was a little kid, like you'd never see like the top guys. You'd never be able to sit on their bikes or touch their bikes. So just let kids sit on my bike, even start my bike, rev it, making their day, and that's something they'll never forget, So it's just like I'm here for the people and the fans, and just the love of the sport,
It's awesome.
That's
Absolutely,
cool.
guys. And I know we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes, and that's why we started this show, is we wanted to give people that are supporting the races and the riders that I believe need some more attention. That's why the show was created. Yes, it's called The Shit Show because I'm the host, and we all know it's a shit show when I organize things. But anyway, I sincerely appreciate every single one of you that have watched, and make sure that you like this video and go follow Bobby and Tristan. And guys, we support you 1000%. Bobby, good luck next weekend. Tristan, get that effing bike in the main this weekend. And I'll let you guys have the floor real quick. Bobby, you can say where we can find you, and you can leave the show. And Tristan, then you're up next, and then I'll let my other co-hosts go.
Yeah, guys, you can find me at Bobby Piazza, my first and last name, on Instagram, Facebook, pretty much my main two social media platforms. Or if you want to help out, just shoot me a DM or comment like my pictures. I'm down to figure anything out or work something out. Any sponsorship, put you on my bike, on my helmet, on my jerseys, canopies, all that. So I'm interested in any sponsorship possible just to get me to the races. Unfortunately, I'm not at Oakland this weekend because I didn't have the sponsorship. So hopefully I'm making it to Arlington next weekend and put it in the show.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Same for me. You can reach me at Tristan Lane 90 is my Instagram, Tristan Lane on Facebook as well, or Tristan Lane MX at gmail.com if you're trying to email. But same as Bobby, like there's always ways, if someone wanted to do something, I can definitely make it worth their while with my bike, my gear, something. So any help is always appreciated, trying to get us to the next race.
Hell yeah, guys.
Best of luck, guys. Best of luck.
Yeah,
I
appreciate you guys having us on. Good luck this weekend, Tristan. Put it in the
Thanks,
main.
dude. Yeah, man, I'll be seeing you soon.
Hey, can I get you guys a drop? Can you guys drop the hammer?
Uh-oh.
Bruh.
Bruh. Nobody went. Whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
Johnny's got the best one for sure.
He does.
Yeah, I got the most annoying
Got a
one.
trademark.
Hey, I want to remind people too, if they're in Dallas, get back there. If you go back and see Piazza, he'll let you rev his bike. You know that's going to be a thing, right?
Blow your valve.
know it.
Good news is I see more Yamahas on Facebook Marketplace, dude.
I'll be getting the next one.
Nice. Need a
Hell
Facebook
yeah,
Marketplace
and-
sponsor.
Cooksey, where can we find you?
That'd be awesome.
Don't worry about me. Just go see Bobby in the pits. You're good to go. So
There you
Awesome,
go.
awesome. Well, hey, I
Guys.
appreciate all you guys. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks, guys.
We are
yes,
done.
thank you guys.
Peace.
See ya.
Guys.
Thanks.